Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of Not the Girl Next Door. I'm your host, Meg Reynolds. And you know that saying, the best things in life are worth waiting for? Well, this week's guest is no different because it has quite literally, I want to say, taken us about 2 months to finally make this episode happen. Both her and I have had some very busy schedules and are finally able to make it work. And I'm so excited to introduce to you guys Hannah Huante, host of How I See It Pod. You may have seen her on socials. She's very well known for her outfit videos, but behind all that, she runs her own podcast, just opened her own studio, and is just a badass female entrepreneur. So, of course, very fitting for me and what I do. So, Hannah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And honestly, I take full responsibility to why this has taken so long. You were very kind to say it was both of us. I've been such a chaotic mess. So I appreciate your patience and I'm really excited to be here.
I'm just excited we were finally able to make this happen. I mean, we both align so well. But even though we're on different halves of the coast of the country, and, for the people who haven't seen you before, can you kind of introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about why your mission and your why behind your podcast?
Totally. I started fashion blogging and content creating in 2017. With my, self-brand, How Hannah Sees It. And I really just did it because I felt like at the time there was no one who looked like me, who wasn't like an Alexis Rien or like model-esque looking gal, like no shade towards them, just like TikTok wasn't a thing. Like people weren't talking about like real shit online yet. So I really wanted to start creating content and fashion videos and share my life in a more relatable way, especially because depression and anxiety was a huge part of my life. So I honestly started sharing outfits, talking about kind of my mental health on stories. And then couple years in, I went full time and then just kind of realized I had more to say. I feel like it's kind of awkward to share like a huge paragraph about a depressive episode under an outfit pic. So I was like, I really want to just like build out my brand and like make more of an impact, especially when it comes to mental health. So I was like, I'm going to start a podcast. So How I See It podcast kind of launched from that. And it's kind of been like gangbusters ever since. I just want to inspire people to pursue more, whether it's in fashion, whether it's in their mental health, their healing journey, unapologetically. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, from our initial phone call, was something really you and I bonded over. As both of us, we started our brands out of a sense of not just needing to heal, but also wanting to share our stories with others. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about social media is it's given a platform to people like you and I who probably would have never had one otherwise.
Yeah, I think that it's one thing to hear, psychologists and therapists and doctors talking about, depression and healing and breakups and relationships. But I think to just get I'm just like a normal fucking girl, and to jump online, talk about my own healing and the things I'm going through. I just feel like it is the greatest reminder that we are not alone. And I found that in my own healing. I mean, I had horrible depression, horrible anxiety. It was definitely at the time like something I viewed as a part of my identity. And I think that listening to other people's stories and kind of what they went through made me feel less alone. And it was a huge part in me being able to remove mental health and mental illness like away from my identity, because I think I was keeping myself in a victim state.
Yeah. I think that's such a good point. I think that's something for a long time I struggled with as well, as feeling like I am my anxiety and I am my depression. And like, it was just going to be with me for the rest of my life. And while it is true, like we are on a mental health journey for the rest of our lives, like it's going to be a roller coaster. What do you think is something you did for yourself that kind of helped you decenter that from your identity?
I think that, and a lot of people who are really going through it don't like to hear this. It's very controversial to say and a little bit triggering, but so I say it with love, and especially because I was there and it's my own experience. I think like when we claim like, I have depression, I have anxiety, like when we solidify those narratives like over and over and over again and don't do anything to try to rewire our neural pathways, or we don't try to like work through our childhood shit, or like look at our own trauma, or like look in the mirror at the patterns that may have not started with us, but that we're continuing to perpetuate, I do think it like perpetuates this like victim state. And like,
Yeah.
of course, like depression, anxiety, like those are always going to be a part of my story. They're always going to kind of be like a passenger in my car. But I found myself like letting them be the driver, I guess, if we're going to use the metaphor. And so I think like one, going to therapy, obviously, two, like really like looking at myself in the mirror with like honest eyes and like developing like a serious sense of self-awareness of what am I perpetuating? Like what stories or traumas am I continuing to like sit in and perpetuate in my life that are keeping me in this place of stuck? And I think the moment I was able to kind of like let go, take responsibility, start like really like moving through that stuff was the moment I was able to kind of like shift those things away from my identity. Because I think like depression, anxiety, like all of this mental illness is really at its root just like a violation of conscience. It's a violation like of our authenticity. And so I think for me, it was like starting to like pause before reacting, starting to like rewire the like neural pathways, start like affirming like things to be true over myself. Like I am smart, I am capable, my life isn't hopeless. Like over and over for years started to allow me to like align more in my authenticity. And I think when that starts to happen, you can kind of step away from depression and anxiety and mental illness and like the narratives that come with those illnesses.
Yeah. No, that I can't say it any better myself. Like, a big piece of my story right now is I've gone no contact with my father.
Mm,
And this has been the most difficult 6 months of my life to navigate. And I
mm,
actually just wrote him a letter this week, kind of explaining, because he's been trying to reach out to me and the guilt is horrible. But I was like, I just need to say what I need to say finally and be heard and seen. And something I said in the letter, which is I think kind of what you touched on, is, I empathize and I understand all of the things that you have been through in your life, and you are not at fault for the things that people did to you. But what you are at fault for is the ways in which you continue to not heal, in the ways in which you continue to fail to show up, in the ways in which you continue to just cause me harm as your child. And like that is exactly what you're saying, of how sometimes people do make excuses for their bad behavior because of their anxiety and depression.
yeah.
And it's a controversial thing to say. Like some people just love being a victim. And I think at a point in time, I was one of those people, and maybe you were as well, where you almost wear it like a shield then, because nothing else can hurt you worse because you already know you're in this
Oh,
victim
yeah.
mindset.
Oh, yeah. People don't like to hear it, but I feel like, again, you can say it, I can say it because we've both been there. I feel like, I mean, I literally thought like I would never experience peace. Like I thought depression and anxiety was going to be like just my part of my everyday, every single day. And I think
Mhm.
that to your point, like especially with your dad, I mean, the family dynamics are so incredibly hard. And it's so crazy you say that, because I feel like I've been battling that for the last few years of like feeling like a guilt and responsibility to like
Mhm.
remain a family member, but also trying to put boundaries up and like move through. And even in
Yeah.
relationships, I know you talk a lot about relationships here as well. Like I feel like something I say a lot is like, I have empathy, but I don't have sympathy. And I think that, no,
Ooh,
it's I have empathy, but I don't have sympathy. It's like, even with myself, like I feel like there are tons of things that have happened to me like throughout my childhood that would, I don't know, like give me a valid excuse to like pout and like be upset and like not move forward. Like really like traumatic shit. So I'm sure with you, I'm sure with everyone else, like we've all experienced like really intense traumas. But I think it's like, at what point are you, to your point, like wearing your trauma as like almost a badge of honor? And I think
yeah.
that's what was happening to me. I think that I really was scared that if I let go and like tried to move forward, that no one would be like validating the experience anymore, because like I was the only one that was validating it. And that's such a
Yeah.
lie we tell ourselves. Like it just keeps us stuck. And so if we can apply like empathy, not sympathy, to not just others and in toxic relationships with our family or whoever it is in our life that's keeping us stuck, but to ourselves, most importantly, like we can have grace and empathy without, remaining a victim.
Yeah. No, I need that on a t-shirt. Like seriously, that's just the perfect way to phrase things, because I have found myself on my healing journey, and you can tell me if you felt like this too, like when my friends just sit and bitch and complain and don't do anything to help themselves in a situation, these days I find it really hard to continue supporting them because I've gotten in the habit, one, of asking, okay, do you want advice or do you just want to vent? Because there are some times you just want to
Yeah.
bitch. You just want to hear, yeah, this sucks. And like, that's all you need in the moment. But then there's other times where the people who like, they're just like constantly looking for the advice, but you're not telling them what they want to hear. And it is so frustrating. And to your point too, with, empathy and not sympathy, something I've lived by in every relationship, whether it's a friendship, romantic, with family, I'm always living by, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Like your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, they can absolutely be valid, but if you handle yourself poorly, you have just invalidated every argument that you have. And like that was a big thing I took away from my last relationship, because there were a lot of situations in which, his emotions and feelings were probably valid, but the way in which he belittled me, gaslit me, attacked me, invalidated everything.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I feel like our especially like women in this community and like this age group, there's a lot, especially now that we're like, which is a great thing, like people are more openly talking about like mental health and like emotional abuse and relationships, the good and bad. I think like what's come with that is people like overuse words like
narcissist,
gaslighter or narcissist or whatever it is. And I think the reality is that like a lot of us have these really negative, toxic tendencies, especially in communication. And I think that was a huge part of my healing, was like realizing that I was like reflecting and communicating and emoting in ways that were just like completely inappropriate. And like they were perpetuating like the depression and the anxiety and the loss of relationships. Like I didn't assume like the best like in anyone. I felt like the world was out to get me and attack me and like did not mean well. And I think that, my experience, I get it. Like I can look at my timeline and be like, that really makes sense. But again, like I have empathy, not sympathy. Like I was at this point, like reaching and edging into my mid 20s. I'm now in my late 20s. Like, come on, like we're adults, we're engaging in relationships, whether it's friendships, romantic relationships, we're running companies. Like at what point do you need to just like grow the fuck up? And am I allowed to cuss, by the way?
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Like at what point do we just grow the fuck up and like take ownership while still providing grace for ourselves? But like, we gotta change our life. If you want change and you want successful relationships, you want to feel at peace, you want to feel happy, you have to take ownership and do the hard work.
Yeah. And it's so difficult to learn, where do we draw that line of like, for me, I think I was the polar opposite for a long time, where I give people too much grace and I see the good in people far too much, to the point where it leads me to self-abandon, be a people pleaser, like all of these different things. And, for you, I'm sure it wasn't just one moment, right? Like there's always a series of moments leading up to like that point where you need to have that come to Jesus reckoning moment. Was there one for you that you can kind of pinpoint as like, whether it was the start of your journey or just something that really kind of woke you up to, I need to do some work on myself?
I think there was there was a ton, but I think there was like,
of course,
there was like two that come to mind. I think like the first one was, I was just so like fucking depressed and suicidal, like for a lot of my younger years through high school and college. So I think like towards the end of college, I was studying to go to law school actually. And I just like couldn't even imagine going. Like it was like I couldn't barely go to class. I barely graduated. Like I should have had like such a high GPA, but like all of my, like I pretty much almost failed a lot of my senior year classes because I didn't go. And like attendance is like a huge part of your grade.
Yeah.
And I just like couldn't get out of bed. I just like wasn't well. And so I think that there was a moment where I was like, it can't get like much worse than this. Not to be morbid, like I'm feeling like I'm feeling like I don't want to be here anymore. So it's like I either can like try or like I'll be in the same place. You know what I mean? So I think there was this like push to like this deeper knowing I had of like life is like meant to be more than this, if that makes sense. I think like I was in such a dark place that I feel like it was this wake up call of like, you are meant. I had this like deep intuitive knowing, like there's no way that life should be like this. Like I knew there was other people. And I think that was a huge reason why I started my platforms, but I was like, there has to be more than this. So I think that was like what it took to get me to like the first step, which was getting a therapist, trying to like start seeing someone. But like, I would say the major like shift was I was in a really serious relationship. I was with this guy for 3.5 years and it
Wait,
ended.
same.
I'm like, it's always a breakup, right?
Was it a college relationship?
Yeah. 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 And it was like, I mean, this is like totally maybe a different episode or we can get into it, but like I always had like really intense trust issues and like never fully opened up to like him, but like it was serious. Like I viewed it as serious. I mean, we were together for 3.5 years. I know he really loved me. He was in his 30s. Like, I mean, it was serious to me.
Wait, you were in college and he was in his 30s?
No, we were both in college and we graduated together, but he was in the military for a while. So he was like behind.
Oh,
and then, we were 9.5 years apart. So we started dating my senior year and then like kept dating through. And, you know, he had a lot of demons too, but so did I. And I think that what had happened was that I think I really, instead of like investigating and looking deep into like my patterns and like the things that had happened as a child, like I started like using the relationship as a way to like make me whole. And so when we broke up, it was like devastating on a level that I didn't even honestly think that was equal to like my feelings for him. Like, I think that I had put my entire worth, like sanity, like peace, like ability to function in the world on this notion that like I was like wanted by someone else.
Yes.
And so I think when that left, it totally like moved the veil away and like pulled the curtain back to like what was actually happening beneath the surface, which was like an absolute train wreck. And it's funny because the reaction I had to us breaking up, again, like really I felt was not like equating to like the seriousness I felt emotionally towards him. Like it was very selfish. I think I had like used him as a way to cope. So that was like a huge low point and it forced me to look in the mirror. And I think everybody has that like moment of reckoning that like forces them to look in the mirror and be like, what the actual fuck is going on?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because I think a lot of people don't actually like their partner. And this is probably controversial to say too, is like, I think a lot of people don't like their partner. They just like the idea of like being in a relationship, getting married, having kids, but like they don't actually want to do the hard work that will make them good at those things.
Oh,
like
not controversial.
They want a wedding. They don't want a marriage. Like
not controversial at all to me. Like I 100% agree with you. I think people like people for the way they make them feel, not like who they actually are.
Yes, 1000%. And like, that's been a big thing with me in dating. And like, I tell all my friends this when they're like crashing out over a guy and like being like, should I text him? I'm like, okay, but do you actually like this man? Or do you just like the idea of him? Do you just like the attention he gives you? Do you just like the way he feels? And like one of my friends, he's going through a breakup right now. And like, he was hardcore crashing out over this. And I kept saying to him, I'm like, okay, I get it. It's like heartbreaking to lose somebody who's become such a big part of your life. But like every other thing that you've told me, it's like the writing's on the wall of why you guys were incompatible. So he's like, but it could still, I'm like, no, because the version of the person in your mind is not actually who they are in front of you. And that was like the biggest thing I realized in my relationship that brought you the podcast was the version of him that I thought could exist and the potential that I fell for was never reality. And that's the thing too, is like the problem with dating a partner for potential is you see the potential. Do they see it in themselves? Like,
like, I'm so guilty of this. I'm like laughing because I'm just like, I think it's like I think women are very much like this. And also I think that if you're someone who's like very in tune with like people pursuing more and like doing the work and like being the best version of themselves, like you really do believe in their like potential. You believe that they have it in them to like get to where they are. And I would say that's like one of the hardest parts of the healing journey, if we're going to call it that, is like you have to like accept that not everybody is going to embark. And it sucks, especially in a romantic relationship, especially if like someone isn't being super toxic. I think that's the hardest part. When someone's being toxic, it's actually easier, I feel like, to leave sometimes because you're like, okay, they suck. They're treating me like shit. Like I need to go. That's not the case for everybody, but like I just think there's sometimes
you would think.
Well, sometimes there's like an excuse, like, okay,
But like, I
Yeah.
think the hardest breakups or like the hardest like separations or having to leave people behind is like, they're not really doing anything wrong to you. They're just like not showing up for themselves. And you can't force
Mhm.
someone to like see their potential and show up for themselves. But to your point, I think for me, like in that breakup, like it was very much not me saying like his potential, but more so using it as a distraction. Again, just like
Mhm.
not pursuing healthy love. Like healthy love is like expectationless. Like it's you love someone because they're an asset to your life. Of course they make you feel good, but you don't love them because of the way they make you feel. You love them for like the quality like list and assets that they have and the talents and all of that. And for me, I was using it as a distraction to not look in the mirror. And I think when he
Yeah.
left, I hit rock bottom because I had to fucking look in the mirror and it was painful.
Friendships will always come and go. Relationships will always come and go. And like something I always say about the people in our lives that's actually made me process relationships, because again, anxious attacher, like I am so afraid of losing people in my life. But something I've realized is when someone comes into our lives, the only thing that's black and white about that relationship is they either will be in our lives until the day that we die, or at some point we will lose that person. We will have that last conversation with that person. We may not even know it. And looking at friendships and relationships that way has made me process them a lot better and different. And especially in being in my mid 20s and you in your late 20s, like we know how hard it is to maintain friendships, how hard it is to make new ones that are actually quality. And like, I think in this era that I'm in, and I'm sure you can relate, like being a business owner now and like an entrepreneur, I've like started looking at my relationships differently too.
Yeah, because time is so valuable. I
So
mean, like,
valuable. And
it's
it's
so
like,
rare and valuable.
and it's also made me see like who shows up for me in the ways that I actually need. Because I think too, when it comes to friendships, like love languages in a sense apply. Like not everyone views friendship the same way and like what it means to be a good friend. And I think there's a lot of incompatibilities in friendships that people just ignore because they're nice. They've done nothing wrong. It's just like a romantic relationship in a sense.
Totally. I think it's also like back to what we were talking about. Like, it's painful as you get older to like see people like not keep leveling up with you, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
like a romantic relationship or a friendship or whatever. And I don't think I thought that was going to happen. Like, I mean, people talk about like, you're going to like evolve and grow and like leave people behind and new people will come in. Like, it's cliche, whatever. But I think like you don't actually realize like until you start getting older how much it actually impacts you to like see that people are not like pursuing more, whether it's like their mental health or their career or just like their peace in general. Like when people do not show up for themselves, like they cannot be good partners or good friends. And so
No.
it's painful to again be someone who sees a lot of potential and really fights for people and their potential, but like it's just potential. Like you can't force them to do it. Like I always like joke, like you can lead like the horse to water and like even like press its head down slightly. Like I will always be that person that's like, come on, but I can't like force it like into the water to drink. Like I can guide it there and I can be supportive. I can be a good friend. Like that's like my love language is like pushing people to pursue more and motivating in that way and really being along for that journey. But like I can't force people to show up. I can't control that. And I think that was a huge part of my own healing is like, and I'm still like really working through it as like, why do I need to control everyone? Like, why am I trying to control people's lives and their decisions and their relationships? Or like, why do I have this expectation? And I think that's a huge part of getting older and growing up and maturing as a woman is like having to like understand that you can't control the way people show up or what they do for you. And if you're going to love, it has to be expectationless.
Yeah, that is so true. Because again, when you're the person who's fighting harder for somebody else's potential than they are for themselves, like that's a sign to check in with yourself of like, well, why am I caring so much? And like, also, I think there's an element of then like, well, what part of my life am I trying to distract myself from a little bit? Like, what problems am I ignoring? Where am I falling short? Like all of these things. And I think that's for me, because I'm the same way. Like I will give opinions whether or not they're asked. And I had to kind of reconcile like, well, why do I do that? And like, I'm still working through that. And I don't really necessarily have all the answers yet, but I think it's because like for me, I would like to think it just comes from a genuine place of like, I want the best for the people that I care about. And like, I want us all to win.
Yeah. I think that for me, it's like stems from like a very, like, of course that 100%. But I do think like, if I'm being really honest, I think that growing up in like a chaotic home with like an emotionally abusive parent and like feeling very out of control, like, and like very parentified as well. Like I definitely was the parent to my parents emotionally and then to my brothers. And then like I felt like very alone in this world, like emotionally and like support wise. Like my parents, like I'm very privileged and blessed to like grow up with like parents who could afford to send me to school and like support me in that way. But like emotionally, it definitely could have been better. And I think that like when you feel emotionally very alone and you have to parent yourself in that way and things are really chaotic and there's an emotional abusive parent situation happening, like you start to really hold tight and control so that you can have predictability. And like this isn't, new news, but I think like that's what it is. Like I don't want to have to let people go. Like I don't want to have to like not know like if this relationship is going to work out or if this person's going to show up for themselves or like if I'm going to meet someone else that like fulfills me in the same way. Like doesn't it just feel easier to maybe stay in a toxic situation and like force them to do what I want them to do? Like when you say it out loud like that, like obviously it sounds ridiculous, but I think that's what's happening. It's this inability to surrender. And I think that I'm gotten so much better at it, but it's still a pain point. And I think it's a pain point for a lot of us. And I think it's why we fight so hard for potential.
And now that you've embarked on this healing journey, and I'm assuming, maybe I'm wrong, but not everyone in your family has kind of done the same work on themselves. Like, how have you started to view your relationships with your family differently? And like, how have you learned to like navigate these conversations and hardships and like an unwillingness to also level up in a sense?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I talk about this a lot that I think that there's like a grieving process, especially when you grow up in a similar situation where like you just like want to be fucking normal and you just like want to have a normal family, whatever that means. But I think like that's the narrative of like, I wish I just had like stability emotionally in this way. And I think it's a grieving process of accepting like you're never going to get that. And there's no point in like wasting, at least for me, like I have hope for them, like that they'll like continue to move forward. I've seen like signs of it and that's great. But I mean, in the sense of like, I'm never going to like get what I wanted as a child. Because I think that's what it is. It's like the hurt child is like, I just want to like be loved and have like this. And I think it was coming to this point of like, I just need to let myself like grieve that I'm that child is never going to get that family or that parents. And again, I'm an adult. I can like move forward, create new boundaries, create new relationships. And I think the moment I was able to just like feel my feels about it and then start like looking at my situation, my parents, my family, my brothers, because like we're all still in relationship. Like I haven't like cut anyone out. I'm like, yet. I shouldn't say that, but like
never say never.
Navigating boundaries, to your point with your dad, is really, really hard. And like I'm maneuvering that now. But I think that accepting where they're at is kind of like how you do that. You have to grieve. You have to let yourself like feel the feels about what you wish like young Hannah or young like you, fill in the blank, didn't get. And I think you just have to meet your parents or your siblings or whoever it is where they're at. And that's really hard. It's the same principle we're talking about with like friends and relationships. It's like I kind of just had to look at them and accept them for who they are and like redefine what that relationship is going to look like. And it's a battle sometimes, especially when you have a parent that's like not, emotionally healthy, I feel like. But I've seen it, especially like in my dad, like, he's moving forward. He's not perfect, obviously. But like, I can tell he's like taking steps to like redefine a relationship with me. And like, that creates hope and that's cool. But is it ever going to be like the daddy daughter relationship that like every girl wants to have? Definitely not. But I think like you grieve, you accept, and like you make the most of what you have. And that's what I've done. And I think over time it's gotten easier to like navigate the communication.
Yeah. And it's so important meeting the person where they're at in life and deciding for yourself if that's a place that you're willing to meet them. Like there has to be a willingness on your end to meet them where they are. And for me, like I was trying to do that for so long with my father of redefining the expectation, releasing those expectations of like accepting like, okay, I'm never going to get that time back. It's never going to be what I deserved or wanted growing up. And like time and time again, when I would have those conversations and set the boundaries and have a little bit of hope, I would get let down again. And I finally had to ask myself, like, because you always hear the saying, oh, but they're your parent. They love you. Like, oh, that's your father. He loves you. And it was like, I understand in his own way, he does love me. Like, but how many times do I have to let myself be hurt for the sake of his accepting his love? It's kind of what I realized. Like, I should not, the cost of his love and allowing him to love me should not be my peace, my peace of mind, my sense of self, my just any sort of my mental health. Like that should not be a cost of being loved by your parent or really anybody in your life. And, that
I think
was
it goes back to the empathy and sympathy thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I finally, for me, I had my breaking point. And everyone I think has their breaking point where I felt it coming. I resisted as long as I could. And I finally got to the point where I was like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But I think had I not embarked on my healing journey, I would have continued to just allow it to happen and just stayed a victim and just stayed in that self-pity of, oh, my dad sucks. Like, whatever. Instead of looking at it objectively of he's human, he's wounded, but I can't do that work for him. So, and it goes back to again, empathy, not sympathy.
Well, I think that, and fuck, dude, I'm in such a mood this week. I'm like, do I say this? Do I not? It's like, I'm like, fuck it. Like, I just think like we are sold from such a young age that like, because people share blood with you, that like you have to do certain things, show up certain ways, deal with like, honestly, like bullshit and like abuse, just because you're related. And like, I think that everybody has like their breaking point. Everybody has like their boundaries. And I definitely think that there is nothing wrong with like snipping people out. And I've tried to do it I haven't, because I've really tried for as long as I can to like not have to do something like that, because it's painful. It's hard to like have to ignore people, to your point. Like, but again, like you can't force someone to like show up to do the work and pursue more with you. Like I can extend forgiveness and empathy and agree to like meet you where you are. But if you're not even going to meet me like in the middle, like I can't, there's nothing I can do. So I think to your point, like at some point you have to be like, I've tried to meet you halfway. You're not meeting me. I have so much empathy for who you are as a human, which is why I'm even giving you a chance to like have a relationship with me when you maybe don't deserve it. But I have no sympathy anymore. Like you can't treat me like shit. I think like there's this level of, I think it's hard. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of guilt when it comes to family. And I think that for you, like you can at least leave everything on the table knowing like I tried everything and I can like move forward without guilt, knowing that I did do everything I could. And I think that's where I'm at as well. Like I've done everything I can. Like even right now with my mom, I'm really, really struggling because she's just like she's breaking boundaries like over and over and over and over again. And at least with my dad, I just feel like, okay, he's meeting me where I am and he's like doing the best he can. I can leave it all on the table, look at the relationship differently. On the other hand, it's like there is this battle with my other parent where I'm like, dude, like it was smooth for a while. You were accepting my boundary. Now you're not. So I feel like mentally unwell. It's been a few months. Like that's when you have to reevaluate. And I think that it doesn't have to be a decision that's forever, but like you have to do what's best for you and leave it all on the table.
Yeah. Something that I've started saying is like, it's for now. Like I'm not talking to my dad for now. I'm broken up with this person for now, because it makes it, I think, easier to accept. And I think too, this is, I think, an unspoken piece of being able to set boundaries with these people is like, you have to have a certain level of confidence and knowing yourself to even be able to do those things in a healthy way. And like, I don't think people can set healthy boundaries, and I don't think they can move forward in that way without knowing oneself in a certain aspect. And it takes that looking in the mirror, like you and I have both had to do, to be able to get there.
Yeah. Well, I would argue if like whether you've been, a part of a family dynamic that's put you in a place of like inferiority emotionally, or you've been in a relationship that has left you feeling empty in that way. Maybe you've been in an emotional abusive relationship, toxic relationship. It's like really hard to muster up enough like self-love to make a choice like that. Because for me, like I am so confident in who I am. Like that is something like I am so confident when it comes to business and like showing up for myself and like what I deserve. I don't think I've ever been like super confident in like physical appearance, but always in who I am. But I have a really hard time setting boundaries in romantic relationships in this way, or walking away or giving up, because I do feel like I have always struggled with self love. Like, I definitely have an element, not to be like super dark, of like some self hatred. And I think like that's something I really had to look at. Like, why do you almost like, I don't want to say hate yourself, but like, why do you not love yourself enough to like know that like you shouldn't be put through this? And I can look at my family dynamics and the things like that,
Mm-hmm.
allowed to happen. But again, being honest with yourself of like, I'm almost 30 years old. Like, when am I going to like own it and stop perpetuating my own misery? And I was able to do that, with my depression, with my anxiety, with my business. Like, my life is fully transformed in ways that I like did not think mentally possible. But the relationship part is hard. I mean, everything I think romantically is like another level of hard. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something I really struggle with. And I'm seeing in my friends around me in my own life is that like, we're really willing to like put up with shit. And I think it's a level of not loving yourself enough to know, and not trusting life enough to, you know, take you where you need to be. And it's hard. It's hard to surrender. It's hard to trust. It's hard not to control. It's all the same things.
I don't think it's I mean, I hated myself for a long time. I'll be the first to scream it from the rooftops. Like, I look at my last relationship, the one that inspired this podcast, as like, if it wasn't him, another man would have been in that spot treating me the same exact way because
Totally.
of how I felt about myself. And I think, that was my breaking point. I think for some reason we as women need that breaking point because it's just been conditioned in us to like accept that kind of treatment, whether it's from family dynamics, social, like media, whatever, like whatever's portrayed. And, I think, but I also have to be thankful for that experience because it allowed me to get to know myself in a way that I don't think I would have otherwise. And I think for some reason, people like you and I who seemingly go through so much in life, we have to go through those experiences in order to be able to share them to help others. Like, I feel
Totally.
like this has become part of my purpose, and you probably feel like that as well, a little bit.
For sure. I think that like I used to like wonder like, why did this happen to me? Again, like perpetuating like the victim mentality. And I think now I can look back and be really thankful for like the wisdom and understanding it's given me at such a young age. Like, I do think that like a lot of people don't like have these realizations or have these conversations even. Thank God that's kind of changing now, but till they're older. And so I am happy that I was able to like have these wake up calls and like, like have these things happen to be able to like look and like share with others. But yeah, it's fucking hard. And, like it's not like all days, like happy go lucky still, but it's life is good. And like, it's worth it to like pursue more and continue to push ourselves. And a huge part of like maneuvering life and interpersonal relationships and like not being so perpetually depressed and anxious anymore was like getting good at like making the uncomfortable choice. Like, I say it all the time on the podcast, like get uncomfortable for the sake of real comfortability. And I've really mastered like doing that. Like, I really am good now at like, and master doesn't mean perfect, but like I've gotten really good at like not saying like the thing that's like toxic, or like not popping off, or like handling my emotions, communicating with like more ease and peace and respect. Like, these things have like changed my life. But I think now I'm in this new phase, especially as I'm like getting older and like interested in dating and potentially like committing to someone forever. Like, I have to be able to make that same uncomfortable choice with like letting people go, letting friends go, letting romantic partners go when they aren't choosing to like level up with us. And like, that's another uncomfortable choice for me. Like, I really, really struggle with that. And I'm trying to like reframe it as the same thing that I did for my mental health, but now in my relationships.
If you had to pinpoint, one thing you kind of did to help launch you on that journey, what would you say it would be? Like, if someone's trying to figure out how to get to know themselves that way.
I think you have to master the pause. Like, you have to start flexing like the ability to pause. And I think like being able to do that is just like, again, like going back to like really like sitting down with yourself and asking the hard questions. Like, why have I had like the same romantic relationship over and over and over again? Why do I have the same fight or bad communication situation with like so many people in my life? Like, you have to be able to like sit whether it's like with a pen and paper or just like with yourself, and like acknowledge like what are the toxic traits that I'm portraying in my life that are causing me to stay stuck. And that is a
Mhm.
really hard thing for people to do, because taking accountability in that way is really painful when you've been in a like dark place for a really long time. And then I think when you do that, like you can start to like go into interpersonal relations or just like situations at work or like family, even like kind of starting before like dating and romantic relationships, because that's like chapter 5. But just like starting with friends and like my career and whatever, like actually like not speaking or like executing my knee jerk reaction, like just staying like shutting the fuck up and just like listening and like trying to like feel my feelings more of like, why do I think this person is out to get me? Like they just breathed the wrong way, like they said the word in like that's interesting to me, or like used a tone that felt like they were like trying to attack me. Like that's all in my head. Like that's not actually happening. And I think like mastering the ability to just kind of like sit and like listen to people and not react and like ask questions like, what do you mean by that? Or like, what did you mean when you said this? Like it allowed me to have enough space to not act inappropriately and act in my toxic traits. It allowed me to like make an uncomfortable choice, a foreign choice, and it like builds up the strength and resilience to do so.
Yeah. And like, I think too, when it comes to the communication piece of things, like people got to stop having hard conversations over text. Like
Oh my God.
that's a habit I've stopped, and it's greatly not only helped my anxiety in like friendships and relationships, but like I can now see that avoidant behavior in other people where they'll like only have the hard conversation over text, because it is so easy to misconstrue every period, every exclamation point, capital, they didn't capital, like they, I don't know, like
Yeah.
there's so many things that get misconstrued over text, and it's another way for people to avoid having the hard conversations and hearing and seeing those hard truths in themselves and others. And I think too, when it comes to this like confronting ourselves piece, and this might be, I want to hear your thoughts on this. Like, I almost feel like in order to find your passion and purpose in life, like you and I have, you have to go through those trenches and you have to do that self exploration. And I think that's why so many people feel lost, especially in their 20s. It's because in order to get to that piece where it's like that aha moment of this is what I'm meant to do, you have to weed through a whole bunch of other shit that you don't want to do first.
Yeah. Or even just like feel good or like feel at peace or like get up to the other side of your mental health or get into the successful relationship. Like you can, I mean, how lovely would it be if we could just like skip that part? If we could like skip the like hardship and the self exploration and the accountability, like that's just not life. And I think like we think it is. I think like the thing that I see the most is that people think like we talk a lot about doing the work. Like we like the healing journey, doing the work, blah, blah, blah. And people don't think it's like actually like work, that it's like the hardest, most painful feeling to have to not react the way you have for 20 something years, 30 something years, even 40 something years. It just gets harder as you get older. The more you put it off, the harder it gets. And I think that I've experienced that firsthand. I think like for many years and still now, like I have to ignore the reaction in my head, the thing I want to do that feels natural, and do the thing that feels foreign. And that is incredibly hard and incredibly painful. It does not feel good, but the more you do it and the more like you build up the muscle, you prove to yourself over and over, like, oh, like when I do the thing that feels foreign, it actually gives me the outcome that's aligned with my authenticity and is aligned with my purpose. So it gets easier to like make those choices. But it's really hard. And I think people don't get that. People will start to pursue more, like they'll start getting committed to pursuing more. And then it feels incredibly uncomfortable and incredibly anxiety inducing. And like it feels foreign. So they're like, oh, I'm not supposed to do that. I'm not supposed to do that. And so then they stop and then they stay stuck. And then they're like, what the fuck is going on? And it's like this perpetuation. Like they can't get past the hump because they don't understand that they have to make themselves incredibly uncomfortable to see change in their life, to get to their purpose, to have the romantic relationship. And I think that's where people really miss the mark.
Yeah. Like you can be fans of our podcast. You can listen to all the podcasts, read all the self-help books. You can look at all this advice online all you want, but until you start actually applying it to your life, and like not just applying it, but really diving into those things. And I think that's why so many people don't reach their potential and can't find their passion in life, because it's something, I think a lot of times too, our passion like gets, this is going to sound so cheesy, but like almost unlocked by us learning ourselves. And I
Yeah.
think you and I are people that are so lucky that found that at such a young age. And, how do you think that, I want to hear more too about like you finding your journey, like you on your journey of finding your passion in life and like really allowing yourself the space to lean into that, because that's also a big piece of it, as well as giving yourself the grace and space to lean in and learn those things.
I mean, I definitely like didn't, I don't know. I didn't think that this is where my life was going to go. Like I always knew deep down that I was like meant to do something more and like entrepreneurial, and like that's aligned with my personality, but I definitely didn't. I mean, if you would have asked me like in college when I was like suicidal if I was going to be like hosting a podcast that like helps people like heal, I don't know. I would have been like, what? Like I'm so unwell.
I mean,
I
that
can't
wasn't even a
imagine
thing
that.
when we were in college.
No, but just like I mean, in the sense of like my mental health was just so bad that like I couldn't have even imagined. And I think that when you do the hard things, like you become and you really pursue more, you start like really working on your toxic traits. You really like take a hard look in the mirror, like we've said this entire episode. You start to like align more with your authenticity. And when you're aligned with like your truest desires, the way you want to present to the world, the way you like communicate with others, like you start to get aligned with your purpose. Like not to sound all woo woo, it's just like the truth. And I think
Yeah.
for me, like I don't know, it's been a journey. Like I've had to have a few ego deaths. Like I've had to like evolve and change like with the way my dream is like evolving and changing. Like for a long time, I feel like it was like, I want to be a fashion influencer and content creator. Like that's what I was doing full time. Like that's all I wanted to do. And then I was like, and then I'll start the podcast and like that will like build as well. Then I like hit this plateau and like I was making good money, but like I'm very like entrepreneurial. So like I want to like scale and like continue to scale. And that wasn't happening. And so like to do that, I had to like kind of have an ego death and be like, okay, like people are asking you to like consult and start an agency and start like helping, like different founders and business owners and restaurants, especially here in San Diego with their socials. Like, why are you saying no when it would be like so easy and fulfilling for you to do? And I had to have this whole ego death. Like, I think like the healing journey truly never stops. And you constantly have to be able and willing to like look at yourself with like, a close eye and like face hard truths. And if you can't do that, I don't think you can level up. And I think that's a huge part about like growing a business and continuing to push forward, even from a career aspect, is like you can't expect to level up in your life if you are unwilling to like admit and look at the hard truths of who you are and what you're doing. So for me, they coincided.
The ego thing is so real. And I think that's probably one of the biggest pieces of people's healing and like why they're being held back is because they refuse to let go of that ego. And what do you think is something that, was there a moment for you that you realized like that woke you up of like this, I'm standing in my own way? And I think a lot of the times the only people standing in your way is yourself for a lot of people.
I mean, yeah, there were so many. There's been so many times. I mean, the biggest one I think was like in therapy. Like I realized like the way I was like processing emotions and like viewing situations in my life and my relationships, my friendships, my romantic dynamics, like it was from like a very hazy lens. Like it was from a very toxic, reflective of one of my parents vibe. Like I just had a moment where I think after like much time, like looking in the mirror and trying really hard to work on myself, and like I was in therapy and like I remember like having this moment where I'm like, I'm literally acting like my emotionally abusive parent. Like this is how they act. Like
Yeah.
I am literally doing these things. Like it was just, I don't know if there was like one moment, but I do think there was this moment where I just had to get really real with myself. And it was like over time. But I do remember that being like the big thing is that I realized that like me thinking I'm right and like me thinking like what I was saying and how I was feeling and what I was doing, like I had to have this moment where I was like, it's not the reality. Like it's not. And I have to like kind of let go of these patterns and do my best to like almost like joke on the pod, like matrix myself, like kind of like take myself out of my reality and like ignore the things that feel quote unquote authentic, but are not, because they're not giving me like my truest desires. Like the toxic choices I was making in communication and relationships was not resulting in me being happy. It was resulting in me being really lost, depressed, anxious, and confused. And me making a hard choice, though really scary and uncomfortable, was giving me what I wanted. So I think for me, it was about just like really like having those moments of accountability. And it's still that. It still continues. I think having like being so emotionally upset that like my business wasn't growing in the right way and being able to have that ego death and be like, well, you're standing in your way. Like no one is stopping you. Like you're the one doing it. So I think for me, it was many moments of just like, I check in, I continue to force myself to like look in the mirror, and it's really hard, but it's always given me like what I want. It's always given me more. It's always been like more aligned with like my authentic desire for my life.
The authenticity piece, it's so important to recognize like maybe you are being inauthentic, because authenticity, I think, is such a buzzword now. Like that's what everybody wants on social media. Everyone wants to be authentically themselves. And like, I mean, I pride myself on being authentically myself. That's my whole journey, is learning how to be authentically myself. But when it comes to being our authentic selves, like and not being just authentically an asshole, like how do you think someone can determine what is authentically themselves versus what am I posing as authentic, but I'm just kind of wearing my wounds in a sense? Like, does that make sense?
Yes. I love this question because I find it to be really confusing. And I think that's why maybe it doesn't sound like I'm answering like directly. I think that a lot of times people think when we're talking about like getting back to our authenticity, that it means like not being fake. Like, cause that's like be authentic. Like, and that's important. Like you don't want to be fake. But I think like a lot of people think that's what we're talking about. For me, like authenticity is like truly like who you are like at your core, like what you like want like deep down for your life. So like
what are your values? What do you stand for? Like,
yeah,
you know,
or like
especially for us, like I try to import that into like my branding, and like you can almost think of your authentic self as your brand in a sense.
yeah, or just like even like for instance, like I am like terrified of like commitment and like trusting another person.
Yeah.
My quote, I'm not going to say authentic. My natural reaction is to not get close to people. But authentically, I don't want to die alone. Like I do want to be with someone. Like I do long for human connection. So if we look at that, like you could say, like, let's say I'm struggling to open up, like I could tell myself, like, well, like everything in me is like rejecting the notion of getting close to someone. Like that seems like it's my normal, natural reaction. But I would argue that that is not my authenticity. So I think it's maneuvering the healing journey is making decisions for your authenticity that do not feel natural in the moment. And I think that's where people get stuck. They think that they get the feeling like, oh, this doesn't feel right. So they're like, this must not be aligned with what I actually want. But really, I do think because of trauma, because of our experience, because of the way we grow up, or societal pressures, especially as a woman, it's like your authenticity can get covered and it can get clouded and it can be confusing and really painful. I mean, you could be someone that's like scared to be in a relationship, but then like you catch yourself simultaneously like feeling lonely, feeling to like want to be with someone, yet you like sabotage every connection you have. Like those things are not aligned. And so I think it's about really getting to the core of like, what do you want for your life? Like, I want to like not die alone. I want to have a relationship. I want to have a successful business. Like I want to feel peace. I want to feel happy. I don't want to be like held back. So like what decisions do I need to make to get to that end goal authenticity? And a lot of times it's not aligned with my natural reaction to things. And that's where the healing journey starts and continues. And it's fucking hard. But I think that's how you can decipher the difference between a pattern and true authenticity. I think your authenticity is aligned with like your overall desire and goal for your life.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. And, you know, last thing before I let you go, because we've been yapping and I know your cameras are overheating, but what if you had to start your healing journey over again, or if someone's embarking on their journey for the first time, like what do you wish you maybe started sooner? Or what do you think, you know, you kind of just everyone needs to know in a sense?
I wish I knew from the beginning, like, or even before, I would have started sooner, to be honest. I feel like I started going to therapy at like 23, 4. I would have started sooner if I knew how much it was going to change my life in like such an amazing way. It's definitely fucking difficult. No doubt about it. It's like the hardest ever, but it is 110% worth it. I wish that there was someone around me, and I think we can self-motivate, but like listen to us now and we'll root for you like virtually, but like I wish there was someone that said like you have to be audacious and unapologetic about pursuing more, and like you have it in you to rewire the thoughts you never thought you did, and you have it in you to like find peace and like create something for yourself that you do not think is possible. And I mean, I don't have any regret. I think like everything I did, like I did show up pretty audaciously, and I did like really look in the mirror, and I'm really proud of that work. But I wish I would have started sooner. I wish I would have felt peace sooner. And I think we all have it in us to attain that. And I just think a lot of times we don't think that it's possible.
Again, I can't say it any better myself, but, and also where can people, first I want to say thank you for joining me on this episode, and we finally got to make it happen. I am so glad. This was such a good one. But so people can find you and follow you, what are your ats on social media?
So How Han Sees It everywhere, just for everyday life, fashion, entrepreneurial stuff, just vloggy type day in my life stuff. And then for the podcast, it's How I See It Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and then we're on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, How I See It, the podcast. And Megan's going to be coming on too. So we'll have our swap probably in the link in both of our descriptions as well.
Yes, amazing. And definitely, guys, go follow her, especially so you can hear my episode on the podcast when that drops. We're recording that one soon, and I'm so excited for it. Hopefully we have the cameras fit.
I'm literally going to die if not.
But that's all for this episode of Not the Girl Next Door. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. If you haven't followed us on socials yet, we're at Not the Girl Next Door podcast. You can find us on all the platforms: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok. And definitely give Hannah a follow and listen to her podcast as well. And I will see you guys next week for another episode. Bye for now.